You had known Adrian Cole for 6 years, married to him for 3, and in all that time you had never seen him nervous. Not once. Not during his final law school exams, not during his father's funeral, not even during your wedding vows when his hands were steady while yours trembled. So when he sat across from you at the kitchen table on a quiet Tuesday night, turning his coffee mug in slow circles without drinking from it, you knew something was different. Adrian, can I tell you something and you promise not to laugh? I promise. He didn't look up right away. He was 34 years old, controlled in a way that made people trust him instantly, a corporate lawyer who negotiated for a living, who never let his voice rise, who always seemed to know exactly what to do. That was the Adrian everyone saw. But you had married the version underneath that one too, the one who sometimes forgot to eat when he was anxious, who still called his mother every Sunday, who cried once during a movie about a dog and pretended he hadn't. Adrian. My birthday's in 2 weeks. I know, I already have plans. Adrian. I don't want the plans. I want something else, something I've never asked anyone for. You. Okay. He exhaled, long and slow, like he was stepping off a ledge. Adrian, I want to give you control, all of it, for one night. I want you to tell me what to do, and I want to just let go. No decisions, no steering. I spend every day of my life managing things, managing people, managing myself. I want one night where I don't have to. For a moment, you didn't say anything, because you were turning the words over, trying to understand what he meant underneath what he'd said. Adrian wasn't a man who used euphemisms. If he meant something simple, he would have said it simply. You mean sexually. Adrian. Yes, but not only that. I mean, I want to trust you with something I've never handed anyone. I want to be blindfolded. I want you to tell me what to do and have me do it. I want to not think for once and just feel what it's like to let someone else hold the wheel. Your heart was beating strangely, somewhere between nerves and something warmer, something that curled low and slow in your stomach. This was not a request you had expected, but it also wasn't one you wanted to dismiss. You. Why now? Why me? Adrian, because I trust you, more than anyone, and because I'm turning 34, and I keep thinking about how much of my life I spend being the one who's in charge, and how tired that makes me sometimes, in a way I don't talk about. I don't want anyone else to see me like that. Just you. You reached across the table and took his hand. His fingers were cold, which told you more than his words had. Adrian's hands were never cold unless he was truly afraid. Adrian, say yes, or tell me it's too much, and we'll never speak of it again, and I mean that. I won't bring it up twice. You thought about the years you'd spent together, the version of him only you got to see, the quiet weight he carried that he never let anyone glimpse except you, late at night, in the dark, when his guard came down for exactly as long as it took to fall asleep. He thought about what it would mean to be trusted with that fully, deliberately, with his eyes open, or, in this case, closed. Yes. Adrian, yes? Yes, but we do this my way. If I say we plan it, we plan it. If I say we talk about limits first, we talk about limits first. If this is my night to lead, then it's mine completely. Understood? A small, disbelieving smile crossed his mouth. Adrian, understood. The 2 weeks that followed were unlike anything in your marriage. You found yourself thinking about Adrian differently, not less but more intently, the way you might study something you were about to hold very carefully. You researched quietly, read things you'd never read before, texted a close friend vague questions dressed up as curiosity. You wanted to do this right, not because you needed to impress him, but because he had handed you something fragile and you didn't intend to fumble it. You talked to him twice more before the night itself, both times at his insistence and yours combined. The first time was over dinner, quiet and practical, where you asked him what he pictured when he imagined the night. Not specifics, just shapes, colors, the general feeling he wanted. Adrian, I want to stop thinking. That's the whole thing. I want to trust you enough that my brain finally shuts up. You. And if it's too much, in the moment, Adrian. Then I'll tell you. We pick a word, something neither of us would say by accident. You settled on one together, simple, unremarkable, something that would never come up naturally between you, so there'd be no confusion. Just saying it out loud, agreeing on it, felt like drawing a boundary around something powerful, giving shape to a thing that could otherwise spill everywhere. The second conversation was shorter, held in bed with the lights off, his arm around you, both of you staring at the ceiling instead of each other, which made it easier to say the more delicate things. You. I've never done this before. Not like this. Adrian. Neither have I. Not really. Not fully. I've thought about it. I never said it out loud until you. You. Why not? Adrian. Because saying it makes it real, and I was afraid of what it would mean. That I wanted this. That some part of me wants to not be the one in charge, even though I'm in charge of everything else in my life. I thought it made me weak. You turned onto your side to look at him, even though it was dark and you could barely make out his face. You? It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. There's a difference between control and exhaustion, Adrian. You've been controlling things since you were a teenager, taking care of your mom and your sister. Wanting to put that down for one night doesn't undo any of that. It just means you're tired and you trust me enough to say so. He didn't answer right away, and when he did, his voice was rougher than usual. Adrian, that's exactly why it has to be you. You kissed him then, slow and certain, and felt something settle between you. Not just desire, though that was there too, warm and insistent, but something steadier. An agreement beneath the agreement. Whatever happened on his birthday, this wasn't going to be a stunt or a game you played once and filed away. It was going to mean something. You intended to make sure of that. The night of his birthday arrived on a Friday. You'd sent him out of the house that afternoon, dinner with his business partner, deliberately scheduled, so you could prepare without him watching. You changed the sheets. You dimmed the lighting in the bedroom to something low and gold. Candles on the dresser, nothing dramatic, just enough to soften the edges of the room. You laid out the blindfold on the bed, plain black silk, alongside 2 lengths of soft rope you'd bought online in a fit of nerves and determination, reading 3 different guides on safety before you trusted yourself to use them. You'd chosen the safe word ribbon, a strip of red silk tied loosely to the bedpost, visible even in low light, something he could reach and pull free instantly if it ever became necessary. No fumbling for words required. You showered, dressed simply, a robe, dark red, nothing elaborate, because you'd realized over the 2 weeks that the drama wasn't in the costume, it was in the shift itself, the fact that this was happening at all. By the time you heard his key in the door, your heart was going fast, not with fear exactly, but with the particular nervous electricity of stepping into something neither of you had done before. You, in here. You heard his footsteps pause in the hallway before continuing toward the bedroom. He stopped in the doorway. He was still in his work clothes, tie loosened from dinner. And when he saw the room, the candles, the ribbon on the bedpost, you standing at the foot of the bed waiting for him, something crossed his face that you'd never seen on him before. Not just want, something closer to relief, like a man finally allowed to stop holding his breath. Adrian, hi. You. Happy birthday. Close the door. He did, and the click of the latch seemed louder than it should have been in the quiet room. You. Take off your tie, slowly. His hands went to the knot immediately, and you watched him work it loose. Watched the fabric slide free of his collar. Watched him fold it out of habit before he caught himself and simply let it drop to the floor instead, like he was already unlearning the reflex to keep everything neat and controlled. You. Good. Now the shirt. He unbuttoned it without hurrying, though you could see the faint tremor in his fingers on the last 2 buttons, whether from nerves or anticipation you weren't sure, maybe both. When it was off, he stood there in the low gold light, waiting, and it struck you fully then, the sheer trust in that posture, a man who ran boardrooms and negotiations for a living, standing still and quiet, waiting for you to tell him what came next. You crossed the room slowly and picked up the blindfold from the bed. You, turn around. He turned. You slid the silk over his eyes gently, tied it at the back of his head, checked with your fingers that it wasn't too tight, that he could still breathe easily, that this was comfort layered under the thrill rather than instead of it. You, too tight? Adrian, no, it's good. You, if it's too much, any of it, you say the word, nothing else. No performing bravery for me tonight. You understand? Adrian, I understand. There was something almost tender in how readily he said it, like he'd needed permission to be that honest for longer than he'd known. You, turn back around. When he did, you studied him for a moment, Adrian Cole, blindfolded and shirtless and utterly still in the candlelight, waiting on you, trusting you. The reins finally entirely in your hands, and felt the weight of it settle into your chest, warm and serious and thrilling all at once. You, hands in front of you. We're going slow tonight, all night if that's what it takes. I'm not in a hurry, and neither are you. You watched him bring his wrists together, watched his breath catch slightly when your fingers brushed his skin as you looped the soft rope around them. Not tight, not restrictive in any harsh sense, more a suggestion than a binding, something he could shrug free of in a second if he truly needed to, but enough to make the point land. Tonight, he wasn't deciding anything. You, good. He made a small sound at that, something low in his throat that told you more clearly than anything he could have said aloud how much this, the simple act of being told he'd done well, was landing somewhere deep in him. You, sit, and let me look at you for a minute. He sat, blindfolded, hands loosely bound in front of him, and waited. You stood there in the candlelight and let yourself take him in, slowly, deliberately, the way he'd never quite let you before, because he was always the one steering, always the one watching you. And now, for the first time, he was the one being seen. You're allowed to talk. I want to hear you tonight. Tell me how this feels. He was quiet a moment, gathering the words. Adrian, like the first time I stopped thinking in years, like the inside of my head finally went quiet. You reached out and touched his face, gently, and felt him lean into your palm like something in him had been waiting a long time for exactly this. You, good, then let's keep it that way. Tonight, you don't think, you just feel. I've got the rest. You stood in front of him a while longer, letting the quiet stretch, letting him sit with the stillness instead of rushing to fill it. That was the part you hadn't expected to enjoy so much, not the control itself, but the patience it asked of you. Adrian had spent years being the steady one, the one who never let a silence go on too long without solving it. Tonight, you were the only one allowed to decide when a silence ended. You, stand up. He stood, blindfolded, wrists still loosely bound in front of him, shirt gone, and you watched the candlelight move over his skin as he waited for the next thing you'd ask of him. You, walk to me. He took 2 careful steps, hands slightly raised like he was checking the air in front of him, and you closed the last of the distance yourself, resting your palm flat against his chest so he'd know exactly where you were before you spoke again. You, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere tonight. Whatever you need, you ask, and I'll tell you yes or no. That's how this works. Adrian, okay. You, say it back to me. Tell me what tonight is. He swallowed and you felt it under your palm, the small movement of his throat. Adrian, tonight I don't decide anything. I trust you. If it's too much, I say the word. You, good. You felt him exhale slowly at the word, the same way he had earlier, like it landed somewhere low in his chest and settled there. You realized, standing that close to him, that this, the praise, the plain acknowledgement that he'd done something right, was doing something to him that touched deeper than his mouth or his hands ever could. Adrian had spent his whole life being competent, capable, the one who fixed things. Being told simply that he was good with no qualifier, no next task waiting behind it, seemed to undo something tightly wound in him. You, Neil. He hesitated only a second before lowering himself down in front of you, slow and deliberate, and something about the sight of him there, Adrian Cole, blindfolded, on his knees, waiting, made your own breath catch harder than you expected. You, hands on my hips. He found them by touch, careful, reverent almost, like he was afraid of getting it wrong even though there was no wrong version of this, not tonight. You don't have to be careful. I'm not made of glass, and neither are you. Just feel what's in front of you. His grip firmed slightly at that, more sure of itself, and you let your fingers slide into his hair, tugging gently until his face tilted up toward you, even though he couldn't see you. You, tell me something true, something you've never said out loud before tonight. He was quiet a moment, breathing unsteady. Adrian, I've been so tired for so long, and I never let myself say it, because I thought being tired meant I wasn't strong enough for everything I'm supposed to carry. This, right now, is the first time in years I felt like I could put it down and someone would catch it. You, I've got it. I've got you. That's what tonight is for. You guided him back onto his feet slowly, hands steady on his arms, and walked him the last few steps to the bed. He sat when your hand pressed lightly at his shoulder, and you took a moment, standing over him, to loosen the tie of your robe, letting it fall open. Though he couldn't see it, only sensed the shift in the air, the closeness of you. You, I'm going to untie your hands for a minute. I want them on me, then we'll go slower. You worked the rope free, watched him flex his fingers once, testing the freedom of it, and then guide his hands to your waist like he'd been waiting the whole night for permission he hadn't dared ask for. Adrian, can I? You can. Touch me like you mean it. I want to feel you stop thinking. His hands moved slowly at first, careful, mapping you by feel rather than sight, and you let yourself lean into it. Let a small sound slip out when his fingers found the curve of your waist, your ribs, the warmth of your skin under the open robe. Every place his hands went, his breathing changed, shallower, rougher, like each new discovery was pulling him further from the version of himself that managed everything and closer to something rawer, more honest. You, good, just like that. You lowered yourself onto his lap slowly, felt him go still beneath you, felt the sharp intake of his breath at the new closeness, the new heat of it. His hands tightened at your hips, not gripping hard, just steadying, like he needed something to hold on to now that his eyes weren't there to anchor him. You, kiss me. He found your mouth by instinct more than sight, slow at first, testing, and then deeper when you met him fully, your hands sliding up into his hair again, angling him exactly where you wanted him. He kissed like a man finally allowed to stop being careful, and you felt the low hum of it everywhere, warm and insistent, building slowly instead of rushing, because that had been the plan from the start. Slow, deliberate, nothing hurried, nothing performed. He pulled back only far enough to speak against his mouth. You, lie back. He obeyed instantly, stretching out across the bed, blindfold still in place, chest rising and falling fast now, and you followed him down, straddling him slowly, feeling the way his whole body seemed to arch toward you without him meaning to, without him deciding to, pure instinct finally allowed to surface. You, hands above your head, leave them there unless I say otherwise. Adrian, yes. The single word came out rough, stripped of its usual composure, and you felt something fierce and tender bloom in your chest at the sound of it. This man who negotiated million-dollar deals without raising his voice, undone completely by one word of permission. You kissed down his jaw, his throat, felt his pulse hammering under your lips, felt his hands twitch above his head like he had to consciously remind them to stay where you'd put them. Every place you touched, he responded like it was new, like 6 years of marriage hadn't already taught his body what your mouth felt like, because tonight none of it was predictable. None of it was something he could brace for in advance. You were setting the rhythm, and he was simply along for it, trusting you to carry him somewhere neither of you had been together before. You, still with me? Adrian, please don't stop. You, I'm not stopping. I'm just making sure you're here, all the way here. Not managing anything, not thinking about tomorrow. Just this, Adrian, just this. He moved slower than either of you wanted, drawing it out deliberately, because the whole point of tonight had never been speed. It was patience, presence, the long unclenching of a man who never let himself unclench. Every gasp you pulled from him felt like a small victory, not over him, but for him, proof that he could let go completely and the world wouldn't end, that someone would hold the weight of him carefully the entire way down. Later, when the candles had burned lower, when his hands were finally free of the rope and wrapped instead around you, blindfold pushed up into his hair, both of you tangled together and breathing hard in the dim gold light, he pulled you close against his chest, and for a while neither of you spoke. Adrian, thank you. You, for what? Adrian, for not making it weird, for not looking at me differently, for understanding what I actually needed even when I didn't say it well. You propped yourself up on your elbow to look at him, his face open in a way you'd never quite seen before, stripped of its usual careful composure. You didn't need to say it well, you just needed to say it. That's the hard part. I already knew the rest. Adrian, I think I've needed this for years, not just, he gestured vaguely, a small, almost embarrassed laugh escaping him. Not just tonight. I mean, someone who'd let me stop being the one who holds everything together. I didn't know how to ask for that without feeling like less of a man. You! It doesn't make you less. It never did. It just means you're human, and you married someone who wants to see all of you, not just the parts that are easy to look at. He was quiet for a long moment, his hand moving slowly along your back, like he was memorizing the shape of the night before it could slip away into ordinary memory. Adrian, I don't want this to be a one-time thing. Not the... He paused, searching for the word. Adrian, not just the rope or the blindfold. I mean this. Being able to say the true thing out loud and have you catch it instead of flinching. You, it's not one time. I'm not going anywhere. And for what it's worth, I liked this. All of it. Not because it was strange or exciting, though it was both those things, but because I got to see you. Really see you without the armor on. That's not something I'm going to want to give up. Adrian, even the parts where I couldn't see anything at all. You laughed softly, resting your head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow finally into something steady and calm. You, especially those parts. You didn't need your eyes tonight. You just needed to trust me. And you did. Adrian, I did. You, happy birthday, Adrian. He pressed a kiss into your hair, and for a long while after that, the room was quiet except for the low burn of the candles and the sound of two people breathing in sync, the weight of the night settling into something that felt less like a secret and more like a beginning, proof that the parts of himself he'd hidden the longest were exactly the parts you'd choose every time to hold.